What an introduction. Wow, I think that's my favorite one, and quoting my favorite Bible verse coming into this. So I'm fired up. I'm motivated. I'm really excited to talk to you, Martin.
Why is life great right now?
Yeah, wow, love that question. Let's go right into it. I
Yeah.
think, honestly,
How was that experience on the game show Lingo with your mom?
mm, oh, I'm so glad you asked about that because a lot of people kind of gloss over that, and I want to give a little bit of a background to fully
Yeah.
answer your question. So, um, I there's
I sense that you're just a kind overall person. Why do you believe that practicing kindness is more than just a right thing to do, but a crucial investment in one's own chance of success?
yeah, gosh, you're killing the questions, by the way. Research is on point.
Thank
I
you.
think my life took a turn when I
What's a recent purchase of $100 or less that has had a positive impact on your life?
Oh my gosh.
I used to say $50, but inflation.
Yeah, right. Oh my goodness. Uh, wow. I don't really get stumped very often by questions, but I'm like, I don't even know and I never got that. So that's something that a lot of people don't know. It actually made me really sad. I just want to be encouraging on like the research, the hours of time you put in. This was very enjoyable. I love answering questions that I never have before. I very rarely ever get stumped. And so you definitely stumped me a couple times. So that is incredible. And just continue to do it. And I hope you have um, all 100 people that you want on and you continue to do this and people thank you for the impact that you've made on their lives because of it.
Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Joshua 1:9. My guest on this episode of Passing the Torch is Riley Tejcek. She is a U.S. Marine and the first female Marine to represent Team USA as a bobsledder, making her run for the Olympics. Riley is also a pageant queen, winning Miss Military 2023. Without further ado, Passing the Torch with Riley Tejcek starts now. Riley, first and foremost, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me. And I'm going to try something. Cook low. Did I say that right? I saw that you speak Russian, or so that was my best. I looked that up today.
No, what an introduction. Wow, I think that's my favorite one, and quoting my favorite Bible verse coming into this. So I'm fired up. I'm motivated. I'm really excited to talk to you, Martin.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much. I've watched quite a bit of your content. It seems like you've been very much on a podcast circuit lately, and even over the past year. So I've checked you out over a couple different podcasts and news articles, and I have some good questions for you. But um, why is life great right now?
Yeah, wow, love that question. Let's go right into it. I
Yeah,
think honestly, any day that I'm able to wake up and live my life and have health and family, it is a blessed day. I choose to have a perspective of God and Christ allowed me to wake up this morning and allowed me to continue. And it's that perspective shift of all the little things that go right sometimes. And that's why it's great. I'm in Lake Placid. I'm at the Olympic Training Center. I'm competing in World Cup this weekend in front
yeah.
of family and friends on our home track. I mean, I'm living the life right now.
No, that's great. You do a lot of different things. You are a logistics officer in Marines. You won a pageant, bobsledder. But if someone's trying to come up to you at a bar or any supermarket or wherever, and they ask you, "Hey, what do you do?" Or just anywhere, if they ask you, "What is it that you do?" What's your first response?
Oh, I think it depends on where they see me, right? So if I'm on base and I'm in the commissary, there's be a lot of people that are like, "Hey, you're that bobsledder,"
Yeah.
and I'll go into talking about bobsled because it's pretty evident that I'm in the Marine Corps. Sometimes like walking around Lake Placid, I'm walking around in Team USA gear, so people will be like, "Oh, are you an athlete?" Right? But if a random person's just walking up and they say, "What do you do?" I kind of say, "Oh, I work for the government," and I kind of keep it going, depending on how much information or how much I trust this person. But randomly on airplanes, I've had conversations with people, and then little do I know it turns into a 45-minute conversation about all the stuff that I'm involved in. So it kind of
Yeah.
depends.
No, that's I love that. And I mentioned I've done quite a bit of research about you, but one question I wanted to ask was, how was that experience on the game show Lingo with your mom?
Mm. Oh, I'm so glad you asked about that because a lot of people kind of gloss over that, and I want to give a little bit of a background to fully
Yeah.
answer your question. So, um, I it was my third year in bobsled, and I had found out that I had a very, very high likelihood of making the national team to compete in World Cup. One of our athletes retired. There's a spot opened. I was kind of the next in line based off of it, as long as I worked hard and earned the spot. And I knew that that would mean being USA 3, I would be financially responsible for my whole season because it was the year after the Olympic Games. So there's not a whole lot of funding year one of the quad. And I was just praying on it because I'm like, I really want to do World Cup if I make it. How will I finance this? And I'm praying and I'm praying. And I get a social media message, and it was like, hey, I really think that you would be someone that should audition for this new game show. And like anything, I thought it was spam, and I was like, okay, whatever. And he was like, no, no, like I'm, actually like helping with casting. And I was like, okay, then let's schedule a Zoom. Like, let me, like I was so suspicious, and it ended up being legitimate. And they're like, yep, it's teams of two. And when I thought about someone that I wanted to be with me, that is one of the most brilliant women I've ever met in my life, and just an absolute boss lady and inspiration. I can't think of
Wow.
anyone other than my mother. So we were together. She's like, what are we doing? And she's like, I love her spirit. She's like, Riley, I'm in, let's do it. And so we made the video, and I'm in California at the time and she's in Indiana, and we're going on a bunch of production calls, not even in the same location, trying to compete at this game to get interviewed and get on the show. And we end up getting selected, flew to the UK. I had never been there before in my life for filming. And we got there, and we knew that we were going to be competing live TV, and there's four teams and only one winner. So it's you win or you get nothing. And our practice round what did not go super well, and we're kind of panicked, and we're these two, pretty blondes and people not taking seriously. And we just prayed on it, and I prayed with people. Actually, the us in the finals and the other couple, father and son, he was a strong Christian, and we just said, Lord,
Yeah.
this is your money. Wherever you want to go with it, you shall have
Oh,
it sent. And we won. And there's a video that I posted, a little snippet of the game show, and I'm on my knees like crying because I just was in such like disbelief that the Lord made that happen. And we tithed 10% like we said we would.
yeah.
The rest went into funding my season, and the little bit money I did have left over went into a down deposit for my first home. So
Oh,
it was one of the biggest blessings I've ever had.
love it. Down deposit for your home. That's how you know you're such an adult now. When you win some money, it's like I have to make a down payment on a house. That's a very adult thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I want to hone in. You talked about your mom, the spirit, and how much you love and respect her.
Mhm.
If you could bring back anything from your childhood, what would it be? And I
Mm.
know I'm kind of taking a sharp turn, but I just felt kind of in the moment based on what you said to ask that question.
Yeah. I guess the one thing that I would take back, as silly as it sounds, would be the time that I got to spend with my family. Um, I Since I was 18, went away for college to DC when my family's been in Indiana the whole time. I've lived in Virginia, North Carolina, California, um, and spent months in Europe and traveling for bobsled. And I don't get to see my family very often. And so something I think you take for granted
Yeah.
is how much time you get to spend with your parents and my younger sister. And so uh, I was so excited to get away from home. And now if I could take something back, it would just be spending that quality time with
Yeah.
people I love.
No, I love that, and and especially as we get older, I moved out years and years ago, but I think about my childhood and just certain movies that I used to watch with my parents, and to me, those are always fond memories. Were there any movies that molded your childhood, or that you have fond memories of watching that movie with your family?
Mulan was my favorite Disney
Wow.
show movie, shocker. And so I remember that, and the Let's Get Down to Business and singing
Yeah.
it. And as I was making my journey through the Marine Corps, and my dad would send me letters at officer candidate school, he would reference, he's like, go defeat the Huns. And
Defeat the.
said jokes. And then for Christmas, like I think a year or two ago, he bought me this Mulan doll because the new animated movie came out.
Hmm.
And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this doll? I'm a grown adult. And he was just like, I saw it and I thought of you. So I would say that definitely instilled in me like this woman warrior aspect.
No, that's really cool, and that's like I said, I've listened to a lot of your stuff, but I don't think I've heard you talk about that before.
I've
Yeah,
never have. Yeah.
yeah. As I mentioned, that's the thing with podcasting. I pride myself on on the research, and congratulations on setting up your LinkedIn. That's the second part of becoming an adult. Right after it's on the adult checklist, you down payment on the house, and you create a LinkedIn. So that's
Adulting.
I know you've accomplished a lot, but that needs to be in the top three of your adulthood is LinkedIn. But with researching, it's kind of for podcasts. It's like the professional way of saying like, hey, I've been like, don't arrest me for stalking or anything. It's but so after researching on various podcasts and interviews, it's clear that you just have like this you're always smiling. You just seem very genuinely happy and sincere. It's refreshing. I sense that you're just a kind overall person. Why do you believe that practicing kindness is more than just a right thing to do, but a crucial investment in one's own chance of success?
Yeah, gosh, you're killing the questions, by the way. Research is on point.
Thank
I
you.
think my life took a turn when I gave my life to Christ, and the way I view everything. And it talks a lot in the Bible about the fruits of the Spirit and things just naturally that come when you're plugged in with Christ,
Yeah.
and fruitfulness and joy and kindness and all these things just naturally come up because you have so much to be joyful for. I mean, my life has not been easy. I've gone through heartbreak and tragedy and all of the things just as anyone else. I've failed more times than I've succeeded, but I feel like my purpose on this earth is to populate the kingdom, and I may be someone's only interaction with Jesus. And I know that Jesus was a kind, loving man that, despite everything that happened to him, was just loving and wanted to pour out kindness and give people a reason to smile. I fail more oftentimes than I would like, but generally I am always happy because there's always something to be happy about. I always am
Yeah.
kind because we're called to be, and it just happens kind of naturally, I guess. And I know sometimes people are like, question it, right? Like, oh, you can't be that nice. You must have an agenda or something. And
Right.
I'm like, no, actually, like, I just want to give you a compliment, or I'm competing on a world stage, and I may have just gotten my behind kicked, but I want to go up to my competitor and be like, you just crushed it and you got after it, and that was awesome. And they're like, wow. And then our competitive atmosphere is so much more fun. It's definitely, don't get me wrong, I still want to beat you, and I'm still going to work hard to beat you, but I can respect you while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And I just feel like that's somewhere, like a change that I want to make, that everyone's life to an extent is better because they've met me, whether I made them smile, whether I gave them a compliment, maybe the way I made them feel. Um, just be a positive influence in every life.
By chance, if we just ever happen to cross paths, I would love to get a picture with you in person. But before that, I'd hope that, if I didn't see you and I was walking by, I hope that you would catcall me like a construction worker, right? But instead say something like, like give me a compliment, but like, yo, great research, just something random, like someone did their
Yeah.
homework. But um no, I think that's great because the like clapping for others does not take away from one's own personal success, and that's something I'm
Yeah.
constantly like preaching. But how do you? Because I imagine people probably give you compliments or praise all the time. How do you turn praise, faint or otherwise, into something that can actually be used? Or what's your advice for that?
I feel like I say this often sometimes. I feel like the basic needs and desires of people are wanting to feel seen, heard,
Mm,
and valued. I think everyone wants to feel seen, like they matter. I think everyone wants to feel like their voices is heard and what they say matters. And they want the validity that
yeah,
matter. And I think there's a fine line between having confidence and being cocky. I think it's great to get compliments. I think you should give them out. And I'm going to go two ways with this. One, don't receive compliments and not believe them and shut them down, right? That's something, especially as women, I know we struggle a hard time with. But also on the flip side of that, you're only as good as you are tomorrow. And so my dad and I, one of my favorite things we say is, the only easy day was yesterday. And what I mean by that is just because you had success today doesn't mean you have success tomorrow. And every day you have to wake up and win that day and be productive and do that. So reminisce in the compliment, receive it, right? Receive it. It's for you, it's for that person. Be kind, giving it back, but then also know that there's still work to be done to continue on to that. And so don't be like, oh, I did it. And I'm going to digress for 5 seconds. This is where I feel like sometimes we struggle in society. This is where I felt like I struggled for a second in my life, where I had this goal of joining the Marine Corps and getting a top level MOS. And once I completed that, it would have been really easy to just stop there. Well, I did it. I did everything that I worked years for. And then you get stuck and then you get complacent and then you're not working for anything anymore. So while that compliment may have came there, congratulations, Second Lieutenant Tejcek, like you did it, you're going to go be a leader of Marines. If I take that and I stop there, I'm letting down all the hard work that I just did.
Yeah.
I have to keep going. And so what I mean by that is, but take the time to be like, yes, I did this. I accomplished this. Yes. Okay. I'm proud of myself. But what's next? Because there's more coming. And this is just the beginning of a story that I'm going to continue to unfold.
Man, you talk about me dropping, like you're the dropping the gems. There is one question I do try to keep everything as or best organic as possible. There is one specific question I'm saving for you at the end. And
Okay.
you're oh man, I'm excited about it. So, but I'm not going to say, I'm just going to see if you pick up on what I'm doing. But I want to just kind of focus things. You talked about the conversations, and I know that's something, even as a male in my 40s that I struggle with. And I have actually a note right here above my desk. It says, give yourself grace and don't give up on yourself. Because the toughest conversations we have as humans is often with ourselves. And I'm so guilty of just having that negative conversation, but I've made a conscious effort over the past couple of years for every negative thought I have to give myself 2 positive affirmations. But how can we better develop an awareness of what our private voice is trying to articulate and reinforce in us so it serves rather than hinders our efforts?
I think self-talk is one of the biggest realizations that I had, that I didn't realize the impact that it had on me. And you talk to yourself more than anybody. You know those intrusive thoughts and you know those things. And I'll give a very personal example. When I went through my divorce, I would jokingly say it, or so I thought. And I was like, oh, I'm just damaged and divorced. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
like I'm just divorced and damaged. Like, and I thought it was a healing mechanism, a comedic relief, so to say,
Yeah.
until I realized the power that those words had on me and the labeling effect that I actually was doing. Because then when times get hard, I'm like, well, I'm damaged. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, how did that just come out of my mouth? And I'm like, well, maybe because I told myself that 100 times. And there's a very famous quote that says, whether you think that you can or you cannot, you're right. And that just shows the power of your mind. Is if you think something, you're accurate in that statement. You can force yourself and mind to believe that. So what I would say back to that in similar to what you said, but there's things that we don't even say out loud. There's self-talk that we go through all the time, especially when we do things that are hard in the gym, at work, dealing with children, talking to people we may not like, right? All the time. And there's things that we say in our head, and we need to be very, very careful and pick up the knowledge on how we say and speak to ourselves, right? Are we telling ourselves first thing in the morning, get up, you lazy son of a gun, like, look in the mirror, oh, I'm fat and I'm ugly and I'm this and I'm that, or, hey, let's get up and have a great day, right? Um let's start the day off right. Let's listen to, your favorite music. Let's get going. Let's have a goal. What's my goal today? Who am I going to impact, or what can I pray about, or what am I going to read in my Bible today, or just like these little things. And if you catch yourself saying those, actually my advice would be to tell that to someone else, which sounds silly because now you're making it seem like it's actually a thing. But being able to get those intrusive negative thoughts out to someone else actually doesn't give it that power that stays within. So food for thought.
Man, that's good. That's awesome. Now, that's been key for me. It's just like with that positive mindset and just kind of given like when I wake up in the morning, there's a couple podcasts that I follow, but one podcast I follow, the host talks about the very first thing he does when he wakes up each morning and then before he goes to bed each night is to talk about 3 things he's grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
And I've since copied that, but no, that's great. When did you get me? That's the one thing I couldn't find. I know that said you were married. Was that just a very quick like marriage after college or like your first couple years in the Marine?
Yep. My ex-husband and I got married in 2019 after college, and we had met in the Marine Corps and grew up in towns right next to each other our whole lives in Indiana. We were married for just shy of 5 years, so it wasn't a short relationship by any means. But yeah.
So, there's a lot that happens, I'm still discovering who I am even at my age. I'm still a young guy, but and I think about when I was in my early 20s. Now, you're 26, but how do you kind of talk to people, or what's your advice for people when they're still trying to figure out who they are?
I like to say I try to learn every day. I want to have a curious mind. I want to continue to learn language, a new culture, a new fun fact about me, put myself in a hard position, learn something about someone else. I'm a big history nerd, and obviously even reading the Bible, like there's stuff that I want to learn every day about Christ and things that have happened. And I think the advice that I would give is you're never done learning about yourself.
Okay.
And the only way to learn about yourself is to spend time with yourself. And there's times when I believe that we're called to be still. And that means put your devices down. That means put distractions away and have time for yourself. Some people choose to meditate. I sometimes like to just go on walks. And I get yelled at it, but I leave my phone. I'm like, well, no one can find me anyway. And I want to be unreachable. And I want to spend time with me and my thoughts on who am I? What are the things that I like? What influences me? What drives me? What makes me happy? What makes me sad? Who are people in my life that I'm thankful and grateful for? And so I think the only way to learn is to study. And the only way to study is to set aside time to figure out who you are and know that you are going to constantly evolve and change. And there's different seasons in life. But you need to spend that time with yourself because you deserve it.
Wow. No, that's awesome. You talked about like you're a continuous learner. You're evolving. I actually have a 2-part question. One's a random one too. You also mentioned that you're a history buff or you love history. What from your military profession of logistics have you taken and applied to the bobsled world? And then a follow-up unrelated question to that. What historical figure do you identify with?
Okay, so the first question, how I've taken military knowledge and applied it to bobsled, the ability to trust in your training and act quickly on your feet. In the military, we would take in school and everything, right? You're learning the doctrine, you're reading the pubs, you're having discussions, but none of that really matters when you're in combat and in the situation is awry, it's happening very quickly, and you're what now, Lieutenant, kind of things. And while I've never been in combat, we are in simulations when we're at the basic school and such like that, where they simulate situations where you need to be able to act quick, and you need to trust your training. You need to trust your training. You need to trust the people around you and trust your decision making. So you basically, it's like you already prepared for the exam and now it's execution phase. That translated very well to bobsled in the sense of I have to memorize every single track and every single corner in the track. Then I have to kind of study, okay, where's the perfect line? Where do I want to be? Okay, what's going to happen if I am not on that line? How do I get back on that line? How do I prevent a crash? How do I, right? And you're thinking all these things. But when I'm going down 90 miles an hour, I cannot be thinking about the track walk that I just had, or trying to slow it down. Or if I just made a mistake a while back, I need to think of how I can protect me and my teammate and make sure we're not going to
Yeah.
crash going forward. So I think that there's a lot of trust in your training, and have quick reaction doesn't mean you're always going to make the right decision, right? And sometimes you don't. But you need to be able to act quickly and stand by that decision. Here's why I made that decision. Okay, that wasn't the right thing to do. If I get in a jam, I know I shouldn't have done that. Okay, I'm not going to make that mistake again. The second question, second part that you asked me is what historical figure I most recognize myself with. This is going to sound not so historical, but the first thing that came to my mind, and someone that I look up to dearly, is Pat Tillman. Pat Tillman was an NFL football player that decided to post 9/11, answer Call of Duty, went into the military and ended up dying, unfortunately.
It gave up millions in the NFL. I mean,
Yeah. And that's a story that, again, talked about my parental influence. My dad would tell me, and from a very early age, I realized the power of what he did and saw what it meant to my father, which ultimately saw what it meant to the world. And I was much younger, obviously, when that happened. And not so much that he's historical, but a story that resonated with me of what sacrifice people are willing to do when they feel called to do something.
No, that's great. And I wouldn't have expected that. For some reason, I was thinking Amelia Earhart for some reason, and
yeah, that might be that maybe would have been the answer on a different day, but that's what I always say first things that come to my mind.
Yeah, I love the Pat Tillman thing. So, that's great. Thank you so much for that. I was going to ask you a question like, what do you do because I imagine you're under so many high pressure situations. So when you're feeling overwhelmed and not focused, like what's something you tell yourself? But I think in the previous answer, you covered all that, where you just got to kind of just lock in. But I have one more serious question and then some more lighthearted questions, if that's okay. The lighthearted questions, I think, are really some good ones. But I think, like, to me, I see you as a hero, and with any great story or a movie, the hero of the story, there's always some trial and tribulation. But what have the dark times looked like for you, and what have you taken away from those eras?
Yeah, there's been a couple of dark times in life, more than I would like to go through, more than I would wish upon anybody. Just being super vulnerable. The hardest time that I had was with my divorce. It still feels very fresh.
Yeah.
My divorce was actually official September of 2023. The process started in December of 2022, so it really wasn't all that long ago. And what the dark times look like, was on the outside, and what everyone else saw was me being successful, me staying in it, me being a fighter, but on the inside, feeling lost, feeling confused, questioning why things were happening to me the way they were, feeling like I worked really hard and I lost everything. It was a facade. It blew up in my face, not knowing if I could really trust people again, and me changing. And that was tough, right? I know we talked about that earlier, but I'm like, I'm not as happy. I'm not as friendly. I don't have as much energy to give. I don't have the energy to pick up my Bible. I don't really want to praise the Lord right now because I just felt like my world got flipped upside down, and saw that I wouldn't necessarily say I abandoned my principles, because I think I built a strong foundation, but you get depressed, you get anxious, you get worried, you get fearful. I closed up, and on the outside showed a really strong self, and on the inside felt weaker than ever. And I would say what I learned about myself, I actually have a blog post coming out relatively soon about how to navigate a divorce as an athlete, something I'd open up to. But I learned that you can't escape pain. And the trials and tribulations are meant to be there, and there's always something to be learned from it, but sometimes you have to sit in it. And I would try to make myself so busy and throw myself in a million other things, or run to different outlets, and it failed me every time and only set back my healing process. So I think the biggest thing that I learned is sometimes you just have to sit in it, and there's nothing, and they ask, oh, like, like a little kid gets hurt, like, oh, you want me to, like kiss it to make it better? It's like, no, there's no making it better. You're going to sit in it and you're going to cry and you're going to wallow, and you need to pray and you need to ask for help and navigate through that so you can properly heal, learn stuff about yourself and the situation, reflect, have gratitude, but also grow. And I think sometimes we try to mask the trials, and dark places that we're in, with alcohol, with relationship, with food, with whatever your vice is. And it could even be good things, with going for another job, keeping yourself busy was my thing. And you're only prolonging the process and never fully healing until one day you realize, like, what am I even doing, and who am I, and how did I get here?
Thank you so much just for opening up, and just that takes a lot of strength, and that just shows like you're just awesome. So I appreciate that. Hey, thanks again. I know you've done a lot of podcasts and stuff, and I hope I didn't get like too much in the feels, but I just
No.
man, you have an amazing story. And I know, like, I have a young daughter, and she's 12 years old, and it's such a crucial age to where I
Mhm.
get teary eyed and just all the I worry about stuff, and I'm like, what do you mean we didn't get invited to this party, right? Like, but I just so I look at just young, strong females with such just admiration and strength, and I don't know, you're just so positive, and I just want to do what I can to help share your story because you do positively impact so many. But all right, like I said, if it's okay, I want to shift some gears a little and just pepper you
Yeah.
with a bunch of random questions that have absolutely no continuity or about anything we just talked about.
Okay,
But Riley Tejcek, are you ready?
let's send it.
All right, what's a recent purchase of $100 or less that has had a positive impact on your life?
Oh my gosh.
I used to say $50, but inflation.
Yeah, right. Oh my goodness. uh, wow. I don't really get stumped very often by questions, but I'm like, I don't even know what I bought recently other than food. Um, oh man. Okay, we'll get back to that one. We'll get back to that one.
Okay, all right. How has a failure or apparent failure set you up for future success? And do you have a favorite failure story? And I know you played college softball for George
Mhm.
Washington University. So, yeah, like, again, a favorite failure that set you up for future success. And do you have a favorite failure story?
We kind of lobbed me up for that one. You gave me a nice
Yeah.
pitch there, because I was gonna say, and I've talked about it before, but
Was
um,
that pun intended when you said pitch?
yes, when I was going through my recruiting phase for softball, um, I got turned down by Louisville in South Carolina. I say turned down, offered me walk-on positions or very, very minimal scholarship, and it absolutely broke my heart. I went on full recruiting visits. My dad was a professional baseball player. There's nothing
Hmm.
more I wanted to do than
Did
to
he play
make
for
him
the
proud.
Mariners, or
He
was he
did.
drafted? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I wanted to make him really proud, and going to University of South Carolina or Louisville was two massive schools, big name schools that I thought he would be really proud of, and I was really proud of. And when you spend a whole weekend and back to back weekends, you get your heart just shattered as a 15, 16-year-old,
Yeah.
being told that you're not good enough, was absolutely gut wrenching. But because of that, I was able to go to George Washington. Because I went to George Washington, I met a Marine recruiter. Because I met a Marine recruiter and I went to George Washington, I was able to get involved in bobsled. And then I've been able to maintain a career as a professional athlete and
Yeah.
as a female in the military, right? Which would then open this door. And one failure story I will say that I don't know if it's my favorite, and there's not really a happy ending to this one, so that's kind of where I'm going with that. Um, I know it sounds I'm saying this from a very humble place. A lot of times when I set out for something, I get it because I work very, very hard, right? I'm very accomplished. That doesn't mean I don't fail. And so that's why I'm sharing this with you. Um, I really wanted to be the commencement speaker at graduation for George Washington. And it's like, oh, Riley, you're a student athlete, you're this, you're that. GW's like basically a top level school. I graduated with a 3.8 GPA, so not a dum dum by any means, but I thought I had it prepared. I wrote a really long speech. I submitted my video. I thought oh, there's no way I don't get to the interview round, for the final 5. And I didn't get to the final round for the final 5. And I was so upset. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? I worked really hard. I worked forever on my speech. I practiced a million times over. And now I guess the funny thing, I don't know, I haven't seen it full circle, but I love public speaking, and now I'm out here helping on podcasts, but even public speaking at schools and stuff to help with recruitment. And that's all I wanted to do, was to public speak in front of my university at graduation. And I never got that. So that's something that a lot of people don't know. And it actually made me really sad. Like, I was like, man, I didn't even get to the next round, but everything happens for a reason. I'm sure that the individual that got it was more than deserving, which I know that they were, and they did a great job. So it ended up working out okay, but there was no like happy ending to that. I just failed and didn't get it.
No, you're still winning. Who's a person? Do you mind? Are you friends with a person that ended up giving the commencement speech?
I had never met them in my life.
Well, this is why you won, because I have no idea who they are, and they definitely have not been a guest on my podcast. So there you go.
There
you
it
have.
is.
They're another accolade, right under down payment for the house. But so, did you live in Russia for 3 months?
I lived in Kyrgyzstan.
Okay.
For 3 months. Mm-hmm.
What's that story?
Story was, I was in college and I had finished in 2016 summer officer candidate school juniors for the PLC program, and I was too young to go back for the senior program. So I had a summer off. It was summer of 2017, and I asked my Marine recruiter, what can I do to make myself more competitive? I knew, being a female, there wasn't very many. I want to be the best officer I possibly can. And he was like, well, spend the summer and learn Russian or Chinese. And I said, okay. And I think they thought I was being facetious, and I was like, okay. And so I was looking into programs, and I saw that there was an opportunity to go and be an English teacher for this exchange program.
Wow.
And all places, there's Portugal and Spain and France and whatever. And I chose Kyrgyzstan, and my parents freaked out, and they're like, you're 19 years old and you're going to go and live with a host family in a whole different part of the world. And, it's a stan, right? So also somewhere that isn't necessarily, I would say, not safe, but just a very, very different way of life. I don't blend in as much as maybe I would in other locations. And I decided to up and go. My primary job there was to teach English at a school. But my alternate goal was to be studying Russian during that time and live in a culture and society that was Muslim and very close to maybe war at that time as a stand, right? Like, not really, but Afghanistan isn't super far away. But hey, how does this Muslim culture kind of work, where they speak Russian, but they're also a former part of the USSR? Like, as a history girl, I was like, this region of the world is fascinating to me, and not somewhere where I think anyone I've ever met has really gone. So yeah.
No, that's good. I forget where I heard that, and I was like, that's such a crazy fact. And you're like,
yeah.
But you just, in that interview, it was just mentioned, and then that was it. And I was like, whoa. I want to know the backstory behind that, because like, when did you fit this in? And by the way, have you like mastered time travel or anything, or do you learn?
No,
or 20, like, is there 26 hours in a day that you're working with or something? You have like a 2-hour like infinity stone. Another random question. When you think of a movie image that depicts leadership, who or what comes to mind? Keep in mind, I'm an actor as well, so I've also been in movies.
Leadership. I'm trying to think of some of the movies that I've seen recently. I guess one thing that like I had just seen on my flight to Europe that just is stuck in my mind for whatever reason is Oppenheimer.
I just watched it a couple weeks ago.
I just watched that, and I think in terms of leadership, there's several cases where you could be seen, and I think obviously as the main character, there was leadership and leading the whole project from the beginning, right? And his vision of Los Alamos, and how he wanted to make it a town and a place, and how
Yeah.
he was the leader to handpick his team and who he wanted to be around him, and ultimately lead to this goal. And then the leadership ability to sit down and be like, hey, actually what I did was maybe not what I thought it
Yeah.
was supposed to be like, and I'm going to have the boldness to speak out against that. And so I know that may not have been the answer maybe you're thinking of, but in my head, that's the movie I've seen so recently that I didn't know the full story, and I was very, very impressed, at least with the build up of what one man really did to play a massive part in building of the bomb.
Now that movie just really like hit home, and it changed the world. It was
Hmm.
I think there's a quote in the movie that says, "Oh, you're going to change the war," and it's like, no, you're going to change the world or change the
Hmm.
future and all that. And then Robert Downey Jr. won an Oscar for that. I mean, they cleaned up at the Oscars, so that was pretty cool to see. All right, last two questions. Um, is it Rebecca Rouse?
Hmm.
I follow her on Instagram for like I've been following her for a couple years, and then like you recently just posted like you guys did a workout or something together, and that like blew my mind. It was worlds colliding. I was like, how is this happening? But what was that experience like, just hanging out with her?
Yeah, Rebecca and I have been friends for a little bit now. I am trying to even think how we 100% first met, which is crazy. But her husband, Joel, is a Marine. He's a major in the Marine Corps.
Yeah,
I think we were connected through a couple things. And when I see other women that are getting after it, I was inspired. I was like, man, like you're legit. And we were
she
able
is
to like,
strong.
yeah, mentally, physically, practice what she preaches, all this stuff. And so I'm like, those are the kind of women I want to be surrounded with and by is by boss lady women that are getting it in their own field, that we can, get together and support each other.
Yeah,
And that's exactly what happened, to where, she has a company called Simper Stronger. And I've been able to work with them. I'm one of their athletes, and they help sponsor me, and I help work as a tactical athlete representative of sales for their company that is all about living a healthier lifestyle. And so Rebecca and I get together every so often. That was, I think, our third top meetup that we've had, and we were able to create a video together. Actually, I'll have to send it to you. We made how to do pull-ups for women, especially, but for anybody. But we have so many women that ask all the time about how to do pull-ups and how to get involved, and so we just came in together and decided to film a video of how to do pull-ups, or like steps and processes to get it.
yeah,
So I was really proud of us for that, and what we did. And like I said, I just um, it's very easy to want to bring people down that maybe are similar to you or as successful. And my main thing is I just want to lift them up. And I was like, man, I am impressed by you, and you're a boss lady, and like
yeah.
let's together, you know, have this commonality of voice of empowering women and being comfortable and okay with that. And so I was like, hey, I have an idea for this video. I just want to I want to show it's cool to be strong, and it's cool to like uplift other women. And so we did.
No, it's great. I mean, her workout. I mean, her technique on everything is on point. Where I even
Hmm.
follow her from like for how to do a squat.
Hmm.
Because it's awesome. All right, last question. I got to read it because I typically ask the same question at the end of each podcast, and it's usually if you could place a billboard anywhere in the world, where would you place it, and what would your message say? But I know I've listened to you on multiple podcasts, and this question has recently been asked of you, so I'm gonna switch it up. All right, we're gonna take a
Okay.
detour. So I'm going to be the driver and use the G-force to take the High Line through a labyrinth with a separate question. I hope you can at least appreciate the bobsled term.
I do. I do.
terms.
Love it.
I was trying to like do like a wordplay thing. If there were a bobsled movie made about your life, what would the name of that movie be? And if you get stumped, I do have a working title.
Ooh, okay. A title for a bobsled movie. On my life. Um, huh. Um, um, okay, I gotta hear this working title because I'm trying to think of how to like incorporate it.
All right, the
It-
Semper Deacon.
Oh,
And then the deacon was it your grandfather that played at Wake Forest?
it was.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
obviously the Semper from the Marines, and then I have an actress in mind too, but anyway, I want to hear. Do you have another title?
No, that was good. I have definitely have to think because I want to be like cool and creative. You know, yeah, yeah. I want to like play on words, right? Like, I mean, you got to take the cool runnings out. Like we're doing
I
nothing on
know,
that. Like, that's its own.
and I try to
Um,
avoid that as best possible. And
yeah, you have to.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and I'm like, yeah, I would want something to be, something about like something to do with like America, right? Like I would want something USA like
yeah,
involved in there, some tie with like the military. Um, yeah, so I think that was good, but
okay,
like
I
I'm a
like it.
little, yeah, we can roll with that.
All right, then. Here's who would you want to play you?
Well, my one of my favorite actresses, and I think we kind of look enough alike, would be Blake Lively. I
Yep,
love her.
I see it.
So
So that's my recommendation. And even I could see
perfect.
like her she kind of has like that vibe, that energy, very positive, and
Yeah.
um I could see it. We do have to do one after act, like one other. You have to go back and answer about the purchase of $100 or less. That's had a
Oh shoot.
a positive impact on your life. Now, if it's $100 Chipotle gift card, that counts. If it's I don't know.
Okay, I think I got it. I think I got it because I'm looking at it right now. Was my 2024 calendar. Um, and I am a big, very, very big on writing things out. I don't use
Yeah,
Google Calendar. I get it so confused, and so my day is like so jam packed today. But I have our podcast on here, and I have to
man.
visually see things. And so for me, I want to like look ahead. I want to know what the whole year has in store. Write big events down, right, and then visually every day be like, okay, what do I have today? Where can I fit things in if they come up last minute? How can I, if I want to nap, when am I going to nap? When am I going to eat? Based off of these things that like I have to get done. And then also looking ahead, like we do in the Marines, 30, 60, 90-day outlook,
Yeah.
right? Like con ops, fops, the drill. So, but yeah, I'm always in meetings with my calendar and I live by that. So if someone really wants to disrupt my lifestyle, they will take my calendar from me and I will be a little lost puppy. For the most part, because I can't seem to. I do have a lot going on, and sometimes I do forget things. So the best thing I can do is write everything down um, and remember that way. So I guess a calendar.
No, it's great. I love it. So I'm a list person, and I still like to write out my to-do list. And I know there's all these different apps and everything. And I write out my calendar, and I have I even within my book. It's not over here. It's in the other part of my house, but it's a list of guests. I have my you're on that list, right? But it's a notebook, and it's 2 pages, and I have about 100 names on there of my dream 100 guests. But I write out
Mm,
every single person versus like type it out. And there's just something about me writing out. It helps me. It's my form of meditation. That's helped me
mm,
um so much. Now I just had this random image of you if like you were in Hunger Games or something, and you could bring one item and be your a counter. Like, what are you doing with the counter? But hey Riley, did you have any questions for me, or what are your like? How was this podcast for you? Because I know you do a lot, and it's something I'm evolving with, and this is a big moment for me. So I've
mm.
yeah, just do you have any questions, or did you like the questions?
Yeah, I love the questions, and it's like I always say, and I hope future guests and stuff take too. It doesn't matter how many people view the podcast. It doesn't matter how many listeners you have or anything like that. If you can impact and inspire one person, you're doing it right. And even if no one listens to it, which is not true because my dad listens to every single one, love you, dad. Um, you're doing something right and you're living out a passion that you have that you feel like you're called to do. So continue to do it. I just want to be encouraging on like the research, the hours of time you put in. This was very enjoyable. I love answering questions that I never have before. I very rarely ever get stumped. And so you definitely stumped me a couple times. So that is incredible. And just continue to do it. And I hope you have, um, all 100 people that you want on and you continue to do this and people thank you for the impact that you've made on their lives because of it.
I appreciate that. And then I have to, since your dad is listening, my absolute favorite baseball player of all time is King Griffey Jr.
And my dad
And
played with
yes,
him.
I just so shout out to dad. But
Yeah.
Riley, what can I do for you? Oh, you have your Instagram, you have your
Mhm.
LinkedIn. I'm going to put that in the show notes for people. Is there any other thing or any other place you want people, if they want to learn more about you, where do you want them to go?
Yeah, my Instagram's my main thing and way I get in contact with people through there. If you guys need anything, you can always send me an email or direct message. Um, yeah, that's about it.
And what can I do for you, or how can is there anything that I can better serve you? And I appreciate all the kind words you said about the podcast and me reaching people, but
Yeah, my main thing I always ask people, obviously, like keep following along, right? That's super helpful. And if you see things that you like, share with other people, or if you find them inspiring, and then ultimately, if you have the time and capacity, just always just say prayers. Prayers for my upcoming deployment, prayers that God continues to use me the way He wants, and for health, and for continuing opportunities such as this to be able to impact people.
awesome. Thanks again, and that's all I have. Um, cool. Hey, best of luck to you.